Welcome, my Earth friends, and salutations. Welcome back. This is Volume 2 of Love, Lemurs, Human Relationships, Bonding, Human Emotions, Self-Acceptance, Forgiveness, and Personal Fulfillment. And give us a moment. We consider it rather timely, this discussion, Volume 2, taking place in your terms on December 1st, both the beginning of the month and during a season that is a time of celebration, wherein rebirth, resurrection, and love is celebrated throughout the human kingdom on your globe. It is rather curious, wouldn't you think, that in general now, the average human being reserves this time of year to display and pour affection on their associates, brethren, and relatives. How curious indeed. Those of you upon the spiritual path may, according to each his own virtue, find it always appropriate to display affection and to soften a nasty emotional blow with a kind word or insightful, loving, receptive attitude. How quickly the turn of physical events rouse the sentiment and the human emotion, proclivitating them unnecessarily, all too frequently, toward the negative. But humans have their growth process. This is an uncontested reality. Love is an emotional condition wherein the usual personal inhibitions that reduce or prevent personal contact with others of like kind, but if you are open-minded, of unlike kind also, are dissolved, in which there is a sense of companionship and camaraderie, a sharing of sentiment, in which one's selfish urges are transformed into the we sentiment. Rather than I count, it becomes we count. It would do you well, as individuals and as a collective species of consciousness, to fill your mind with loving thoughts, to temper sometimes the agitation and the anger and the feeling of being personally devalued and attacked, sometimes by those close to you if you are unfortunate. Let he or she who has more wisdom and knowledge be the benefactor, the displayer of kind and loving sentiment. This quality, above all qualities, is the missing ingredient in a good many of human relations. Thinking of others without having to be asked. Being willing to understand their point of view and not abnegate it. To let them have their opinion, not having to win, but just to enjoy their company. A live and let live attitude is appropriate here, though this is the least kindly of all possible attitudes. Love is one of those all-important things in the human evolution that so few come to fully, dimensionally grasp in their daily affairs. Why, every day should be Christmas. The indwelling Christ consciousness is always there. You have the season to remind you, season's greetings. Well, I come with cosmic greetings. It is always the season for a reaching for insight, for compassion, for comprehension, and for understanding. A kind word, a kind thought, a well-intentioned act has, in my time, and that is quite some time, averted many an unnecessary bloodshed and war. At least for a time. When you are resonating and filled with the love vibration, you are capable of contacting your own inner higher essence. A sense of peace can overtake you, and a sense of being extended beyond yourself and lifted up out of the pits of despair, loneliness, and depression can occur. You can self-transcend self-fixated, self-obsessed emotions. The need to defend oneself in human dealings frequently means that many of my human friends develop walls around themselves when they have so much love and good tidings to share. You each, in your own way, make your own personal sacrifices in life. Your value systems and your deeply rooted beliefs that you have psychologically cathected upon, conditioning your behavior. In spiritual development, the intent is to learn to penetrate your own psychological mechanism of action so that you can see lower or baser behaviors for what they are, so that you can embrace them and transform them with love and self-compassion. It is virtually impossible in a healthy, holistic sense to treat others with love if you are not first loving to yourself. There is a manner of placement here involving self and society that is an issue I wish to briefly reinstate in this particular discussion in Volume 2 of our love series. If you are taking care of yourself and your needs, you have a lot more to give. All too often, in putting others first, you self-sabotage when you are putting yourself second. Now there is a way, a democratic way of thinking, not in terms of external world politics or societal politics and candidates, but in terms of inner politics, in which you take a consensus of the emotional needs that are unmet of those around you, and you do your best to assist them in fulfilling themselves and in this way empowering themselves. But all too frequently, in many human relationships, the higher propensities and impetus of the self become submerged among self-gratifying attitudes that are not of the beneficial variety, but of the defensive variety. It is true that you must come first in your life. It, however, is also true that as you put yourself first, you also put others first. You do not put them behind you. Their needs do not come second in a literal sense. Rather, because you are at a condition of peace and feel spiritually and poetically fulfilled, are catering to your needs, which is your responsibility on this earth while you are an incarnate living organism, you have more to give, and the quality of what you have to give is far-reaching. The quality of love is pertinent here. A weak and feeble love that is not compassionate, is not far-sighted, and has little insight is the weaker love in this instance. For a good many of my human brethren watching this synthetic videotape, this celebrity entity communicating to your world through the miraculous intervention of the video king, John Martin, and the assistance of our beloved cohort and friend, Mr. VanZerr, can allow yourselves to be personally touched by a pertinent, reality-based, concrete wisdom that is useful in everyday life and everyday affairs. This is not a metaphysical delusion or fantasy designed strictly for the wealthy. It, in fact, is not a metaphysical delusion or fantasy. It is not a wish fulfillment, and I am not a delusionary projection of my psychics or the racial mind subconscious, no. Though I am aware of such things. I am aware there is so little love in your world. It is a flower that needs to be fertilized to grow and to develop. And as you take care of yourself and your needs, you create the most favorable conditions to grow, to flower, and to develop. But to love completely, you must be willing to take chances. Also, the ability to negotiate and communicate in a clear and concise fashion in those relationships that currently exist is something that should be in the forefront of all of your minds. For love is best represented by communication, both non-verbal communication and behavioral communication. My friends, if you have fear and you are suspicious and you suspect that those you love do not want the best for you, then it is indeed difficult to be compassionate, for you will then perceive you are not treated with compassion. The best way to induce compassion is, of course, to be compassionate. To evoke kindness, you must induce kindness in others by filling yourself with kind and loving thoughts. Now, this does not mean evading your very real issues. No, not whatsoever. This does mean, frankly, observing the weaknesses that may exist within your personalities as earth beings, and understanding you are here to correct those self-perceived deficiencies, or at least the psychological patterns that cause you to perceive these deficiencies, whether or not they are real. Unfortunately, a good many of my spiritual brethren incarnate in the flesh spend a good deal of time beating themselves up. I spend a good deal of time trying to stun you, so that you have to ask yourself questions and get in touch with your self-fulfilling prophecy. A statement I make very frequently to my earth friends is, what you fear the most is what you are going to create. It is also, however, equally true, my friends, and this is a liberating fact that you should meditate on, that what you love the most is also drawn to you. So it is your choice. Then you have options every step of the way in the tree of life. Will you love passionately, give generously and freely of those things you have emotionally, of your wisdom, of your life experience? Or will you fear? Love and fear generate creative tendencies in the human being, for they exist inwardly, side by side usually. You know when love is dominating, when your mood is improved and you feel better physically that day and get more done with less effort. It is almost a frictionless experience. When you are coming from fear, it takes you longer to do those things you have set for yourself to do. Your timing may be off. You have a difficult time verbalizing what you wish to communicate to others of your kind in your business dealings, but also in your personal relationships. So there are times you need to be able to seek your aloneness with the divine within you in your own private way and walk through the passages of your memory. Get back in touch with yourself and become centered. It must be a personal thing that has meaning and sensation to you in a private fashion. No meditation book can do this for you. Though they can assist in their own regard, sometimes there is an over-reliance on external methods and a conformity to external methods that cause you to over-harshly evaluate your behavior and the behavior of others. Above all, it is my fondest wish that in this physical lifetime you locate the centrality and the source of love that gives your being its vitality. When you are in love, you can heal yourselves of cancer. You can give up addictions to drugs. You can give up personality patterns. When you are threatened, the tendency is to resort to personality patterns and behavior patterns. That is a way of crying and asking for help. But if you are unwilling to ask for help in the external world, then you must ask for help in the internal world. Do not expect precision results. Be open-minded when you ask for this assistance. If you have fixed, overly crystallized attitudes in operation, then you will be blind to the opportunities that cosmic intelligence is presenting to you in the present. And you are the divine offspring of cosmic intelligence, so the powers of the universe are equally yours. Love, obviously, cannot be fitted into any particular definition. It is a feeling. But the feeling, the sensation of love is your personal way of getting in contact with a greater resource, much larger, vastly larger than your private selves, as you conceive yourself to be. Love embraces all of you. Lovingly meditating on those you are close to and intentionally forgiving them for their weaknesses and their lack of insight is essential to accomplishing the next step of your personal development. Not declaring war is essential to keep the peace. Haven't a sufficient number of lives been slain, egos been bruised, and love been banished from personal relationships and dealings because of those declaring war? Watch your tendencies as human beings to declare war on your fellow man and on yourself. The only war that is spiritually appropriate to declare is the war on ignorance. When you well up with love and compassion for another, the behaviors you expected them to execute may drop for your mind and become of secondary importance. You each have numerous episodes in your memories that you can call up to your conscious mind at will if you wish to help change your emotional state and induce a condition of receptivity. You will find that your needs will be much more adequately granted if you are coming from a condition of non-prejudiced love. If you are only loved for the needs you fulfill in others, then you are not loved. If you love only because others fulfill your needs, you are not loving. You are participating in the lower order of love, which is, I love those that fulfill my needs. Love of the highest order comes from an unconditionalism. I am committed to making these relationships work unconditionally. That may mean making changes within the relationships you have not anticipated. That may mean you let the other people or persons in those relationships grow and change, and sometimes neglect their obligations and responsibilities within the relationship, and occasionally you will have to pick up the slack. All couples And those who wish to become couples will have to take out time in their relationships to be alone and to get centered, only to come back together within the relationship and reorganize the emotional qualities and content within that relationship. Unconditional love means you say, I am not a perfect being yet, but I am intent on becoming the God self that I know is there. I clearly and rationally and lovingly and acceptingly acknowledge my faults and my tendencies to overreact, to project, and to harshly judge. When I am hurt, I seek solace within myself, or I seek the loving companionship of another that will not judge and spread harmful gossip. If you are loving, a loving being coming from the highest order of love, you do not spread harmful gossip. You terminate it when you hear it. You counter it with a respectful, loving, elevating thought. It is one thing to deal with your issues, it is another issue, however, to become the slave of your issues. An overall semblance of balance must be shot for in your life affairs. That may mean you must go through a period of imbalance in all of your pursuits to achieve the final condition of overall homeostatic balance within internally and thus externally also. Being patient for results is something that is also very important here. I say frequently to several hundred of my psychics friends in your world, and my friends also. And I approve of all of you no matter what your past or what you are up to. That does not mean I approve of your behavior. It means I love you unconditionally, even if you do not like me. Because I am spiritually whole, I do not need approval or acceptance. On the other hand, if I behave in a way that induces this, I accept this with loving open arms, though I do not have arms. It is a figure of speech. Love is the grander passion in all things. It is the unifying essence that qualifies you and denotes you as a self-aware consciousness ready to take on greater evolutionary tasks. If you as a species have not learned love, you have learned no thing. If you have not learned compassion and acceptance and understanding, you have learned no thing. For these are all part and partial side effects of the loving condition. Animosity and confused emotions, fear of loss, turmoil, hateful, spiteful thoughts, words, and phrases, unless they are vented in a therapeutic fashion with a loving other or to the Lord, your inner Lord, are best unspoken. Do not speak out of rage or anger, but speak out of love. Sometimes when you are angry, it is best to be quiet. Others may not have the emotional fortitude, conditioning, personality strength that you possess. If you are more mature than those that you love, then you have the greater responsibility also to be the loving. That does not mean being taken advantage of, or becoming a victim, or buying in to victim dogmology so popular in your culture today. The goal and the motivation within you must be to seek a truer illumination and union with the loving condition. This may mean experimenting and dabbling in magic, metaphysics, and prayer. In meditation, in various religious practices, or consulting or becoming a good psychologist. You must find your own path, what you are willing to do. Love is ultimately a willingness to let be, an unconditional acceptance of the flow and cadence of circumstance, not controlled by fear. Acknowledging fear, yes, but not controlled by fear. It is all right to be fearful, but perfect love doth cast out fear. If you are fearing for your lives or your financial survival, you are not coming from love. If you find yourself having angry thoughts and feelings toward another person, you are evading your loving responsibility. These classes of lower emotions are produced from a weak and tender ego complex because you have been irresponsible with the use of your emotions previously. So you must do all that is possible to build and enhance your self-esteem and put yourself together. Sometimes you have to take yourself apart and put yourself back together numerous times in your lives. You will feel yourself falling apart. You will experience an identity crisis, either an egotistical identity crisis, an employment or job-related identity crisis, a father or mother figure with its roles and expectations identity crisis. No matter who you are in your spiritual development, the more rapid your development, the more likely you will run smack into brick walls and have all the necessary reactions to point out the weaknesses within your personality. You must say, universe, I am only human. The concepts I have of myself in reality are not perfect. Teach me to love and respect myself that I may shower this respect on love and others and awaken their higher potentials. That is unconditional love in operation. A simple example, but a necessary and powerful one. As you master the concept of loving in your personal relationships, and loving yourself unconditionally, not beating yourself up, not abusing yourself, not saying I am doing the wrong thing, but trusting that your personal evolutionary process has a purpose to awaken you to patterns within yourself, so that then love can assert control within the domain of your personality. Then you will find it easy to forgive and to come down from the adrenaline rush and the high produced by a false sense of power of anger. Anger is not a sin. It is not a deviation from purity or from love. It is a necessary component of human emotion that, when cultivated and enhanced, focused in a healthy direction, allows you to overcome internal obstacles on your path to personal, holistic unfoldment. None of your emotions are inappropriate. However, a relative balance should be shot for. If you must have angry emotions, then you must counterbalance them with loving, accepting emotions. Before you communicate with another, always mention the good points first. Then you let them have it. And then you follow with a loving reprimand if that is necessary. Relationships are so volatile and explosive, and they are such a trial. You always feel like you are on trial frequently by those that love you, because the expectations are so stern about what they expect from you, and sometimes the expectations within one's relationships are imbalanced. You must search within yourself and become fair to yourself, and as you correct this, you will become fair to others. You will not allow them to impose upon you in the incorrect manner, nor will you impose in the incorrect manner. This is indeed a growth experience, for there are few examples in your human world today. Your psychologists have some insight, but we must understand they are still on their growth path also. All beings, the whole universe, is a constant state of flux and of change and expansion and contraction. So there will be times that you need to contract into yourself, to separate yourself from others, to find your own sense of solace, to re-equalize, while you go through great internal transformations. And these may involve particularly powerful and pivotal struggles in your personal life and affairs. But you will survive. You may feel like you are fighting for your life. My friends, go with it. Do not fight. Accept. Bow down to your greater self. And understand that as you give up resistance, you stop feeding the fire. The feelings of anguish and pain and anger will subside much more rapidly and easily. In the title of this series of videos, Love, Limits, Human Emotions and Human Bondings, I'm in a haphazardly fashion discussing many of the exigencies that involve human emotional reality. The quality of your lives and your level of personal happiness and your sense of fulfillment and a healthy sense of ego are being discussed to elucidate your understandings. You might consider this the new wave pop psychology of the masses. Only I am not a preacher or an authority figure. This information is available to all who seek and search with sufficient intensity. I always say you can have anything that you desire if you are willing to change for it. The ego is the least qualified to discern where you need to change, because the many functions of the ego is to defend your position, to use logic to beat others up, to figure out when they're going to make the next mistake or the next wrong move. And this is a suspiciousness that may make you successful in the business world, but it will not make you loved and cherished as a person. Instead, the unknown quarters within your personality, the artistic self, the poetic self, is the self that must be consulted. It contains the dark side and the forbidden side of your personality and repressed areas of self-expression that are not allowed within your relationship, lest you deviate from the expectations of those that love you and get the whip. Love is an acceptance and understanding that a person needs their space, as well as intimacy and closeness. When was the last time you hugged and touched your partner, or your potential partner? Was it a selfish touch or a giving touch? Ask yourself these very fundamentally important questions, and ask yourself, what am I all about? What were the scripts and the agreements that we made when we started our relationship? Have they changed? Have we lost emotional contact? All healthy human relationships are based on a deep psychological and emotional contact, but you all evolve at your own rates. If there is a significant time interval in terms of physical age between the both of you, whomever you may be, then your mate will be on a different growth path simply because they incarnated earlier or later than you did. So you must look at these things very pragmatically, not blow them out of proportion, but respect the laws of nature. In my videos, however, I attempt to unify and to tie the lower self to the higher virtual forces that allow you to contact potentials within yourselves and the social world around you to manifest the life that you truly wish to live. Ask yourself the following question. Am I willing to have a life full of abundant approval? If so, if you do not have it, ask yourself, why am I not allowed to have this? What scripts have I signed? What contracts have I signed with my subconscious in my manifestations? This is a particularly important question for you to ask yourself. For at the base of this question, when the answers come, will be the secret reasons why some things have not manifested the way that you perceive that they should, if all had worked out according to plan. If they have not, or even if they have, you must find solace within yourself and give thanks for all that is occurring. You know you are coming from lower ego, the threatened ego that believes it can be exterminated and killed, but you are an eternal being. Please remember that. But if the lower ego is operating, it will believe it is threatened and seek to defend, and not to protect or to increase intimacy, but to withdraw and build walls, to blame and to accuse, to feel fear. So there are times you will have to have conversations with your lower ego. You must not bring the emotional pain from outside of your relationship into your relationship, whether it is in its beginning initial stages or any other stage of development. If you have been married or mated or had several unfulfilling relationships that were full of turmoil or ended unsuccessfully according to your own definitions, then you have some work to do, probably. Because as human beings, I have witnessed decade by decade for eons, literally thousands of eons, okay? There's not many exceptions. A few glorious ones, yes, but not many. Thank God for the few. It should give you hope that things can improve. Coming from an innate sense of goodness, Not a sense of superiority, or that I am always right, or that my mate or my friends are weak in certain areas. You can point out their weaknesses to them, but you do this analytically in a loving way. I noticed that you have a challenge balancing the budget. I notice you allow emotions to influence the way that you spend money. Money in human relationships, oddly, everything boils down to money because money is such a highly charged symbol in your universe. Every emotion known to man is tied in with the concept of money because money represents freedom and opportunity that otherwise would not exist. Of course, this is not true whatsoever. I know I've known many humans, among them the Christ, who had no money and did a very good job living their lives. You must have the correct priorities emotionally if you wish to be happy. So you must consult with the inner poets. The inner poet is the version of you that has a peculiar way of making new internal alignments, so you develop insights that are mergers of diverse information that would frequently not come together and fit, can be fitted together by this self. Creative ways of handling difficulties in life situations can come to the forefront of your mind and be set into practical operation. There may come a period in your life then within your relationships if you are experiencing particular struggles, faced or unfaced at this time, where you need to withdraw and be alone with yourself. But if you must do so, the appropriate way to do this is to preface your intent with a communication. I sense I need to do some inner work, therefore I must withdraw from my usual responsibilities. I will be in contact with you and let you know when this period comes to an end. In this way, others know what to expect of you. They may not be telepathic like my psychic, or like you are occasionally. They may need to hear it in words. You put the seal of approval and the officialization on love when you are willing to verbalize what you are feeling and to be vulnerable. Now, I suggest a break and we will return. This ends part 1 of volume 2 on love, limerence, human relationships, human bondings, human emotions, forgiveness, self-acceptance, and personal fulfillment. And welcome back to part 2 of our discussion on human love and human emotions. Again, I would like to mention that these videos are being filmed live, so you will have to bear with us. You have no choice. And give us a moment. The successful expression of love and the tender, more lofty emotions in human circumstance frequently are preceded by the correct building of the mood within you, within the participant, the one who would embrace others, the beneficiaries of this love. For a date or for a reunion where you treat the other, the mate, or the loved one, with all of the respect and fortitude you would treat a house guest, perhaps for the first time in many years. You do not take or assume that you know what their preferences are exclusively. You pay a little bit more attention to detail here. Flowers, incense, a small gift, intimate conversation, reminiscing on the good, the positive anticipations for the future, and respecting each other's boundaries. Love goes a long way toward melting boundary zones. I have watched many a time through my psychic's eyes when his human friends are communicating. And I see how when two friends start talking at each other from across the room, they get closer and closer till eventually they find an exclusive corner. That is their own space they are creating, and their minds link. An emotional dialogue and understanding is going on. Expressed love is the flow of unblocked and unimpeded energy and action that elevates each participant or calms them down as needed, so that both participants assume similar body postures, use similar phrases. One starts a sentence and the other finishes it. There is a telepathic communication going on here, though it is understated in this particular instance. The power of suggestion in creating the loving mood should be artistically overstated here in this communication. The sobering aspect of this discussion comes from the realization that you have a decided impact on your mood levels, and the expression of love is intimately connected to the flow of energy within your personal micro-orbit as opposed to macro-orbit, through the power of personal meditation on subjects and objects and memories that bring forth that loving attitude. Every culture has a traditional way of expressing love, but the best love is a love that, though not stripped of its cultural tradition, is embedded within the behavioral scenario of the perpetrator. The behavioral scenario of the perpetrator is the seal of individuality that colors their love as special. When you feel more generous, you are being more loving. More buoyant, you are being more loving. Are respectfully quiet when another is talking. Love is basically an agreeable, head-nodding situation in communication. Saying, I understand, I accept, I have no blocks, the bridge is strong between us. Love and intimacy are so deeply entwined, one could have one hell of a time separating them. They do have some uniqueness all their own, each of these categories of intimacy and love. But basically, in human dealings, you have the elements of love here and the elements of intimacy here, and it is mixed up so thoroughly that the pigments merge and create a new color altogether. Love unites complementary opposites. Many of you choose mates that are opposites emotionally. They may meet your physical criterion, in which case you may experience a tug-of-war in your dealings with them. It may take a lot more energy to reach that level of personal communion so necessary to submit the enduring love that has existed and was the basis of the formation of the relationship and the contracts that each participant signs in these relationships. In many cultures and societies that I have seen in your world, it is very common for groups to bond in the marriage ceremony so that the families marry each other and all are enriched. In the traditional Western context and other cultures sharing similar cultural attributes to the Western culture. It is the two individuals getting married and not necessarily their families. In fact, it is not unusual for both families to hate each other. Each family is protective over their own offspring. Unless it is your father or your mother getting married again, then the offspring are protected over the parent. But these feelings of protection cause the separate families to be biased and to take sides of the family member. Unless it is one of those peculiar situations where they like your boyfriend more than you, or your girlfriend more than you. We are talking about inner social, political dynamics here in operation that many of you will be able to nod your head in agreement with. I recognize that as a reality in my world, and I seek to change that. In the bonding relationship between two partners, you have yourself, the other party, and the relationship. You must do what is best for yourself individually before you can really meet the needs of your mate. Your mate must do what is right for themselves individually before they can truly meet your needs, or you will not be pleased with the gifts of love they are giving you if they are not happy. Self-approval is immensely involved here on both ends. Self-respect is immensely involved here on both ends. Each partner attempts to meet the needs and please the other partner. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all human dealings were motivated primarily from this need to please the other person? What kind of world would you live in? Well, you wouldn't have bombs falling in Beirut. You wouldn't have presidents assassinated. Your mental hospitals would be empty. There would be no murder rate. You would not need welfare. The super wealthy conglomerates in your nations would not exist and have control and the funds to hire the lawyers and the petitioners to push laws that will benefit them to the exclusion of others. To some extent, you can tell about the love that exists and operates within a society by the way that society does business. If you have to resort to a lawyer to handle your business affairs, then it is only common sense that you transfer this habit into your personal life and use a lawyer to solve personal problems within interpersonal relationships in a fashion. So what is acceptable in one sector of society eventually, though perhaps not at first, it becomes acceptable in another sector of society. Your private life as opposed to your public working life. What if you treated your employers and your employees with the same degree of courtesy and respect that you treat your mate when you were first madly in love and irrational? Do you think you might make more money than you do today? I wager to say that yes, indeed you would. Though you would make it in a different way. Good business sense is one thing, then why is it that so many human beings have no good business sense in their relationships? They boil their relationships down to a dollars and cents attitude. Though this can be done in a healthy fashion, usually and frequently it is not. Again, because money has such a powerful, emotionally charged, cultural connotation associated therewith. Love is not like money. If you spend your money willy-nilly, you may go broke. But with love, the more you give away, the more you have. Love is like respect. The more you give, the more you get back. Respect is earned and cannot be induced by intimidation or fear. Traditional methods of logic within the workplace do not apply in this context, in this discussion. At times, the edges blur in other ways, but not in this example. There can at times exist a healthy competition within the relationship in which each partner lovingly pokes the other partner enough, ruffles their feathers enough to bring out the best in the partner. Then there are unhealthy levels of competition within relationships, wherein each partner seeks to outdo the other, or one dominates, unwillingly sometimes, other times quite forcefully and willingly. Tradition has it, in Western societies and in other agricultural societies as well, that the male is the dominant feature within the relationship and makes all the financial decisions. The way that he wants to have sex counts. Some males are Romeos and seek to please, and some males are businessmen and seek to be pleased. There are and exist much vicissitude in this regards. In the adult relationship, for those on the spiritual path, there exists a healthy competition, a friendly competition. You do not push the other partner over the edge intentionally. If you work appropriately, then you do not push them over the edge at all. When an argument arises that becomes overly heated, rather than aggravating the situation, one or other of the parties terminates the discussion, or one leaves the room. Each individual must come to terms with the way their neurological system handles the buildup of emotions within the body, so that the body may suddenly lose control. But this manifestation happens when the personality is trying to exert too much control. Learning when to back down is essential in communication. Again, I must emphasize very strongly, it is not the issue of who is right, who can mobilize the facts most efficiently in a discussion of this nature. It is an issue of love. If love is the most important thing in human relationships, then all other things are secondary in this sense. You can only treat others good with and to the extent that you have learned to treat yourself good in a loving, tender fashion. In a very real fashion, you must become your own parent and learn to satisfy your needs and be happy with yourself and overcome your insecurities. If you wish to give unblemished love, love not colored by psychiatric features of personality in a negative sense. Love is one of those irrational things, so it looks at from the point of view from the intellect. Yet love simply has its own special type of logic, and it is not incompatible with the intellect, just like the intuition is not incompatible with the intellect. The correct union of loving emotions, balanced with the intuition and the intellect, allows you to transcend the feeling of being stuck in a body you do not adore. To experience love from others, you must give it. You must spread it, you must share it, you must offer it free of charge. In a sense, the world things in the universe have hidden cost to them on some level. Love is one of those things that is contagious, just like anger. Angry attitudes or attempts to demote others will cause them to mirror back your own emotions at you, and then the relationship spirals down to the ground and crashes like a plane. Ultimately, both partners foresaw this, but because they were operating out of fear of insufficiency, or fear that the worst would happen, the feared event is what is manifested. Love conquers fear. Loving reassurance, loving attention, a thoughtful attitude. Being able to discuss problems in an intimate way without making the relationship the problem. Sometimes the seeming problems within the relationship are really your problems within you that need to be handled. Your psychological situation reinforces the psychological existence situation within the other. Partners within a relationship, when they are first in love, seek to build the other's self-esteem, and they give love unashamedly, unbashfully, unreservedly. You have to watch a very common human tendency in human relationships, and that is to only give love when you approve, and to administer punishment or withholding love when you disapprove. That is a highly selective love that is not coming from an unconditional love. I unconditionally love and unconditionally respect you no matter who you decide to conceive that you are. That, if relationships are born and embraced in that type of love, they will endure, and neither partner will feel subservient to the wishes of the other and build resentment toward that partner. It is not uncommon for human females, my friends, to project their unresolved issues with their father into their male mate. Likewise, it is equally as common, and sometimes much more potently so, that the human male will project their unresolved issues with their mother onto their mate. Your psychologists have had a field day with these and have made millions of dollars. This may or may not have benefited you as a species overall, but it has occurred. Armed with this knowledge and your mind being refreshed, if you are having difficulties or challenges within your relationship, then go to that centered space in your life where you are quite alone and undisturbed. Calm yourself down and achieve a point of emotional equilibrium. Your fist is not clenched. You are not sweating, unusually so or unnecessarily so. Your heart is not palpitating. Your breathing is not labored. You do not have a migraine or unusual aches and pains when you have let go of tension, when you are not defensive, when you do not feel burdened. To some of you, love is the burden of your life. Well, the attempt in this discussion is to assist you in acknowledging you have the capacity to unburden the love in your life. When love is given freely and not selectively, it is unburdened. There's no two ways around it, and there's no other way to love in that particular sense. But you have a whole wide spectrum of potential self-expressions. In this sense, when I say love unconditionally, something much behooved and discussed by many but not practiced as frequently as it could be, perhaps. There are many ways to show this unconditional love. I love you and I wish you the very best, and I may be angry at my image of you right now, but I am clearly able to see it is the image that I must assimilate and deal with. Both partners or all participants must come to assimilate the negative fallout of their own incomplete love patterns within their personality. It would behoove many of my video viewers to make a list of all of those in their life whom they have unresolved issues with and feelings, and to forgive each one of those people and send them a letter of acknowledgement, even if they are no longer on the physical plane. Just mail the letter out through the post office and let it come back to yourself, and then open it and read it and pretend like you are the person that you were so inharmonious with it in earlier days. Unresolved forgiveness issues, either self-forgiveness or forgiveness of another, frequently can contaminate the expression of love and personal existence. This is a technique that many of you, especially males or females of masculine mental temperament, would say, I don't need to forgive people because I have no memory of somebody I had unharmonious relationships with. If so, you are full of bull. Forgetting is not the same as forgiving. In these instances, what you are doing, you simply suppress memory of the event, or you file it somewhere in the back of your mind so that it is inactive. It is not a finished product, however, and these untied loose ends will spring out at a moment's notice when you are least prepared and cause you to fill emotions, add the unnecessary burden of past unresolved emotions in your communications, in your loving relationships. You literally must sit down and intentionally, willfully forgive and let go of all issues connected with all people, nations, politics, governments, or religions that have offended you in any way. For to the extent that you have unresolved issues within you, a sense of non-completeness in terms of forgiveness is to the extent that you will have a modified expression of love. In such instances, you are not coming from unconditional love. Human beings basically have all the same needs, though there are individual patterns involved in these, internally, emotionally. How much time do you spend praising the people that you love in your life? If you must admonish them, is it followed or preceded or both by a comment as to how well they are doing in other areas? Do you say, I am pleased with your behavior in this area and I am noting progress, but in other areas, I am unhappy? At least balance your communications. A good question is, do you have the right to judge those you love? Well, you judge them as harshly as you judge yourself. Again, there's no two ways around it. You may have a personality characteristic where you are too exacting on yourself and meeting your own standards of accomplishment in your daily performance, financially and in other ways. You may be prone to deep feelings of guilt or resentment or resistance or pointing fingers. Such emotions, if allowed to run their natural course, will simply fulfill their programming, which does not come from the healthy, holistic seat of a well-rounded love. When you first become involved in a relationship, it is not unusual for you as human beings to feel that the other person is more worthy than you of your love than you are. And that is what causes the first imbalance in relationships. You must take time out to love yourself and nourish yourself equally to the extent that you nourish the other, or you will create a political, energetic imbalance in your emotional flow. One you will have to make up for later. Incorrectly apportioned love, like a lack of sleep, cannot truly be made up for in any literal sense. So a lot of you have homework to do. Forgive those who have trespassed against you, who have crossed your boundary lines of comfort and made you experience and face things that are rooted in your own, sometimes unacknowledged and unexpressed fears. It is not unusual within human relationships for both participants, if they are working, unless they are independently wealthy, to share their money into an account. Due to the social connotations involving money, this can be a very tremendously tumultuous and dangerous position. While the bonds of trust are strong within the relationship, all is well. When they become shaky, all is not well. Sublimated feelings to seek vengeance on the other partner because they have wronged you or hurt you in some basic way are intentionally or unintentionally encouraged a feeling of distrust within you. can cause basic politically incorrect imbalances in the way that finances are distributed within the relationship. I will not go into heavy detail here, for this is another video series. It is a world unto itself, though one that touches upon love, limerence, human emotions, human bondings, self-acceptance, forgiveness, and personal fulfillment. And I suggest a short break to part 2 of volume 2. Welcome back to section 3 of volume 2 of human love, limerence, human bondings, human emotions, forgiveness, self-acceptance, and personal fulfillment. And give us a moment. Letting go of certain personality patterns formed through one's passage through personal experience is essential to the full expression of love in your personal life. Garbage out you from the past can keep you from loving fully in the present today, or running off those who would give you the love that you crave. In previous videos, in particular, Personal Values and Winning Attitude Volume 1 and Personal Values and Winning Attitude Volume 2, I discussed the roles of prejudice and the degradation of self-respect for individuals and social groups in your societies at large. Well, you may benefit immensely by watching and listening attentively to the communications and the information in those videos. For each video follows another and a very particular sequence designed to unmask some of your loving potentials. In physical immortality, which I began writing on through my psychic shimoke for my book, to be distributed soon to the masses, The Forbidden Gift, I discussed the roles of personal psychology and mass psychology and how these interplay to affect genetic and biocellular functioning, how this increases or decreases lifespan, and the peculiar way the values of your cultures and of your society influences overall physical health and your existence in chronological time. I myself am a timeless being. I watch your world from the outside in. I use different means of communication to communicate the knowledge that we seek to preserve, that has been handed down generation through generation of spiritual being with the utmost of integrity. What was true yesterday is equally true today. There are norms involved in the value systems, those that are sublimated and those that are obvious and out in the open, that exist through the centuries in human civilizations. This knowledge is to some extent distilled and purified and broken down to the basics so that it can edify your spirits and empower you to achieve levels of love, self-acceptance, and personal reward, perhaps somewhat beyond those you have ever known. The world can be a beautiful place to live. Your relationships can be fulfilling and intimately enriching. Personal contact with others can be a fabulous experience and one to remember and not one to fear. And we have our howling friends attending this discussion. From love, life is born. Love is unpredictable. But the unpredictable needs stability as a backdrop within which to express its originality. Its unique and uncadenced sequences of expression in your personal experience must be filtered through conscious attitudes and unconscious attitudes that you bring forth with you from previous incarnations, but also those that you inherit from your ancestors who are still living, though in another dimension as well. You carry within your genes and chromosomes the memory and the knowledge of the heritage that they added to in their existence. And you perpetuate that heritage in the production of your own offspring, but also in the lively and creative expression of works of art, such as poetry and painting, in your medical and technological industries, and in the formations of your governments, your worlds, and new social laws. You have chosen to incarnate and be born during a time of most certain and equally uncertain change, a time when old ways of being still beckon to you, but are not in the forefront of your consciousness as a species. New breakthroughs and new technological developments, including psychic technologies, are now in the foreground. New methods of therapeutically handling the imbalances within your psychic structures can now come to fruition due to certain astrological alignments that permeate what you must most surely know as the astral spheres. I deal with your inner psychology and your inner technology. Call it psychotechnics, if you will. There are fundamental laws that underlie the mechanical and the unmechanical functioning of your universe at large. As I have stated many times, the universe would not be the same without you. You set personal standards of personal excellence in each lifetime that you wish to achieve. Some of you may use suffering as a means to achieve this. Some of you are ready to give up the path of suffering and of self-denial and indulge in a healthy narcissism as opposed to an unhealthy narcissism. My goal is to reach out to all of those in your world through my dream classes, which many of my psychic clients attend regularly, and stir up quite a ruckus in doing so. And also through the distribution of my videos, audios, and books. It is a way for me to reach out in a tangible sense to affect those in your world ready to transform their lives. Love, after all, is one of those events in personal life that gives meaning and erects a context about itself that embraces all other phenomena within your lives. Reach out, knowing the sky is the limit. Be willing to charge forward again in your life's affairs to make yet another effort to add to your attempts at achieving personal greatness in all things. The religion of self-fulfillment, though self-obsessive initially in its beginning stages, is now transforming to the religion of group fulfillment, wherein self-fulfillment is not lost within the auspices of the group context, but each individual adds to the value and richness of the group through their own personal fulfillment. As you become increasingly and in-depth personally fulfilled, and unrig your mind and emotions of self-sabotage patterns, you contribute to the whole. And as I say most frequently, and most astoundingly, and profoundly, as you handle your life and affairs, you are doing what needs to be done to enrich the lives of all others. Dare to reach out, to touch the depth within the universe that is your own private sector. Make a difference in your life and contribute to the welfare of your community. Work to disentangle yourself emotionally from identifications with inner politics that block the free flow of love. Love, I know it sounds primitive. Love, I know it sounds obtuse. Love, to some of you, it is unfamiliar. But love, my friends, love is the key. Love is the answer. Love balances out all things within and without. And through indulging yourself in the personal path of love, new pleasures can be contacted, new inner corridors can be traveled, new methods of thinking, of living and expressing yourself can evolve out of the old, according to a natural sequence of inner unfoldments. Love you. Love who you are. Love who you have been, and forgive yourself for wrongdoings that you perceive. Let go of guilt, anger, and criticism, and get on with living by getting on with loving. The next video will be a video on positive, constructive, hypnotic affirmations designed to induce the loving condition. This ends our communication in part 3 of volume 2 of Love, Limits, Human Emotions, Human Relations, Human Bonding, Forgiveness, Self-Acceptance, and Personal Fulfillment. I bid you all the love that you desire.
Broadcast Network. Tune in to the mystic broadcast of oneness emanating from every point in the universe.